Hello YouTube, James Rieger here with another video. I wanted to put this out because I had this interesting idea. What about a turn-based RPG with, sort of Dark Souls elements kind of slapped to it? And I feel like this is how it would go down. So let's turn on the HUD. I don't know, I'll just leave the HUD off for now. It's mainly about the stats. So here's a couple things that would be kept normal. I mean, Vigor would influence your health, Entombment would influence your FP, MP, Endurance would have some influence, but not a lot. Vitality would have some influence too. Same Strength and Dex would also have influence. Intelligence Faith are just pretty much used for, are also used for what I'm about to talk about. So what I'm getting on at is maybe you could actually do like turn-based fights in actual Dark Souls. So what I'm talking about is it's like I said, it's based around your stats. So Vigor, Entombment would pretty much stay the same when it comes to their basic utilities in actual game. Here's where things would go different. So how things would go down is, depending on how much endurance you have, would be how many actions you would actually have. So every 50 stamina would equal 1 action. So right now, at the moment, I have 119 stamina, which means I could take 2 actions when it's my turn. Which means, if we turn on the HUD, I could swing 2 times in 1 turn. Now this is where things get a bit complicated, I would say. So Strength would obviously would also influence your weapons and everything. So Strength would influence, I think, just normal raw damage. Same for Dex. But Dex is where it gets interesting when it comes to rolls, because you're gonna have to get some D20s involved in this if you're actually gonna do it. So pretty much how dexterity would work is, let's say you pull out a D20, then you roll it, and let's say you got a 10 on a D20, then you would add your existing dexterity, which would be at the moment for me is 16. That means I would have 26 dex. Then you would take your opponent's dexterity into account, which I feel like for fair play, both of you would take screenshots of your attributes. Well, I mean, pretty much for fair play. I mean, unless you got a friend which you can trust with this kind of stuff, then they can just tell you. Let's say my opponent's dex is 10, 20, or something like that. So let's say it's 15. So I got 26. So minus 15. That would go down to 11, I think. And every 1 point would be 5%. So 11, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. I would have a 55% chance of hitting. So if I got, the 55% chance, I would take an action with the swing. And I would hit the opponent. But let's say I missed it. It would be so let's say I actually, I would land a hit, or the 55% actually went through. It'd be like this, pretty much, like hitting a normal person. But if I missed, it'd be like, in most games where your character would go up, and then actually missing right in front of them, go back to normal position like normal RPG. And then, since I have 2 actions, I could do the same thing, but I could yield different results. So it has a bit of RNG in the combat. So let's say, same thing happens, 55, the first turn where I actually did hit, so I did that damage. But let's say the second time I actually miss, so I'd lose both my actions. Now, this is where shields would also come into play too. Now, I feel like at the moment, 100% physical, weapon blocks are unallowed. Like, anything that does 100% physical block. So, like, shield, every other shield is pretty much fair game. So, um, so if it's your turn, I feel like the best solution on your turn is to take one action swinging if you have two actions. So swing once, and then you take another action to block. So you would take reduced damage next turn. Then it's your opponent's turn, who has probably completely different sets and setup and armor and everything. And then I think Intelligent and Faithless also influence damage. Dexterity would be the main stat, where it influences the additional addition onto the 20D. I mean, recommendations would probably just be deprived, so you would always have that guaranteed 10, addition on, or addition to the 20D. So now it's your opponent's turn. He has taken a hit, and it's currently his turn. Let's say he has my same stats as well. So now he has two actions. Now let's say he wanted to two-hand the attack. That would take up 3 actions. But if he landed the hit, if you were, let's say you're blocking the attack, you would, take normal block damage as usual. But let's say you weren't blocking that turn. If he two-hand hits you, you will lose 1 action turn on your next turn. So let's say he hits, you're not blocking, you take damage. On your next turn, you would only have 1 action. Well, James, you're asking me, aren't you kind of screwed in that situation? Especially if you have only 1 action? Well, I feel like the counter argument to that is if you only have 1 action to spare, then that effect doesn't apply to you. Now, this is where heavy attacks come into play. Now, to use a heavy attack would be, 2 actions. Normal attack, normal attack would be 1. The block to use 1. But then you could two-hand block. I mean, you would still probably take normal reduced damage, but that means next turn you would always have a guaranteed block on your next turn. So you would still have 2 actions, but even when you end your turn, you would always have a guaranteed block. Now, I think two-hand and two-handing blocking would have cooldowns. Now, this would also influence a fuck ton of other stats. I don't know. This is more stuff that I could go into detail. But maybe you guys could, leave comments down below on how this shit would be influenced. But let's get the luck and heavy attacks. So how heavy attack technique would work is the luck. Now let's say both you and your opponent have 10 luck, and you wanted to go for a crit hit. This wouldn't add, it would only be like a 5D for the critical luck. So since we both have 10, and I roll 5D, and let's say I got like 11, that means my luck initially would be 1. But how critical would be is my luck would have to be 5 higher than, I would have to have 5 extra points higher than my opponent. Now I feel like to balance this out is you can only have increased luck. You can't have any more increased luck, so both opponents' luck would always be 10, just to make it fair. Which means deprived, unless you're going for another class that has already, fixed luck. That's the only way you could go for additional luck. So whatever, depraved would be 10 across the board, so you don't have to worry about any stat being low or anything. So let's say my luck was 5 higher than my opponent's, lost luck. That means, depending if I was two-handing or one-handing, I would do a charged heavy attack, which would be a crit. And parrying would, I don't know, I feel like parrying could be integrated somehow, but it'd be hard to do because, you would have to time it. But I feel like luck can also play into a factor there, like maybe Dex. It purely depends on how stuff like this would be influenced. Like I said, I'm pretty much just throwing ideas at the wall and see which one sticks. And all these ideas are just mainly up in the air and see which one actually works. Now, we look forward to a video similar to this in the future, where I actually do this with my friend. It should be interesting on how we actually approach it. By then, I might have finalized rules on how everything goes down and everything. Should be fun. Should be interesting. Should be a ton of laughs, probably. I don't know if I actually have both recording for me and my friend. But, I don't know. So, this is pretty much I don't know, I'd probably title this if Dark Souls was was a turn-based RPG or something like that. Leave comments down below on maybe additional ideas on how to improve the so-called combat or turn-based combat system. You all have a good one. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye, everyone.